You are listening to Not on the Payroll right here at notonthepayroll.com. You can check us out at Facebook, check us out at YouTube, check us out at Rumble. If you are looking for our new Facebook account, yes, the new one, you will need to look for the gorilla with the red headphones, and you have found our mascot. We will be having some merchandise and things like that with the gorilla with the red headphones coming out soon. So be on the lookout for that. Today we have the privilege of sitting down with Jasper County Chief Appraiser, Lori Barnett. Lori, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And this has been a long time coming.
It has, but I promised you as soon as I would, I could. As soon as I could, I would.
Absolutely. So we have we escaped the 2022 protest period, or are we still inside of that protest?
We're still finalizing.
Still finalizing.
Still finalizing.
Okay. So I know that there have been there's been a lot of things said about the appraisal district, a lot of things said about a lot of things having to do with the taxes, tax increases, and those types of things. But before we get into all that, kind of give us a little bit of background as to who you are, where you came from, and really how you came to be the chief appraiser.
Oh, okay. I am originally from Newton, just across the line. I actually live about 5 minutes from where I grew up.
Okay.
I am a small town girl.
So you're not an import?
I'm not necessarily. I am right here from East Texas for sure. I was born and raised there. My dad was born and raised in Newton. My mother was an import, but she was there for a long time.
Sure. I mean, at some point we were all imports, right?
Yes, at some point. She's actually from Oklahoma, so that's a bit of a stretch.
Well, there you go.
But anyway, they're good people, or they were. I came here to the appraisal district. I've been here almost 29 years.
29 years.
This spring will be 29 years.
Okay.
Yes.
So how did you get started here?
Actually, my father was in the appraisal business, and he worked here. When he passed away, I came to clean out his desk and visited with Brenda, and I was moving back to Texas, and they're like, well, we've got this summer part-time job, and you know, if you're not sure what you're going to do when you get back. And so when I got moved on over here, that's what I ended up doing, was taking this part-time job until I figured out what I was going to do. And then it ended up, well, how about you help with collections? Because at that time, the appraisal district did collections.
Okay.
So I started doing that. And then I said, well, you know, I think I'm going to go back to school.
Yeah.
And the chief appraiser at the time, Mr. Luther, said, well, why don't you stay here and we will educate you and we'll let you get your license. And then 29 years later, here I am.
Wow. So at what point did you take over as chief?
In 2015.
2015.
Yes, and I was so honored because I thought I was the first female chief appraiser in Jasper County.
Okay.
I did not realize that the very first chief appraiser was a female.
It was a female.
Yes, it was. A lady from Buna. Her name was Jeannie Bonner.
Okay.
She actually helped with the organization and everything of when appraisal districts come to existence back in the 80s.
Okay.
So, but then Mr. Luther came in, and he was here until he left, and many years. He was here for a long time.
Right. Now, did he end up going over
Tyler County?
He's over in Tyler County at this point.
Tyler County, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So he's still even a resource to today, probably.
He absolutely is a resource and a mentor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool.
He's
Very
been
good.
very good to me.
So you have, you know, you're married, you're here in the community, have kids, raising kids, Jasper ISD and the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards. My kids are out of school.
Okay, okay, all right. So, but to say that you're not directly connected to the community would be a misstatement.
A very misstatement.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
So having said that, what do you feel like? Because as chief appraiser, what do you feel like is the best part of your job?
The best part of my job? Oh, gosh, the best part of my job for definitely my staff.
Okay.
You know, I've got good people. They're local. They're East Texas people.
Right.
Best part of the job, serving the community. We offer a lot of assistance.
Okay.
Most of it, though, you do have to come in if you need us to. We try to talk people through forms and things over the phone, but some people need more assistance.
Yeah.
And if they come in, we have a good customer service up front.
Okay. So having said that, with all of the good things that are with this process, with this job, it almost seems like in some way, shape, or form, this almost may double like an adult daycare of sorts.
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Maybe not go that far, but at the same time, some of the more challenging parts of this process is obviously sitting down and really trying to get to the bottom of issues with people in their appraisals, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So during this protest period, now explain to me, like a person who's never owned a piece of property, what is the protest period? What does that look like?
Okay. Protest period is when we send out the notices, and that has any changes, whether it's maybe a removal of an exemption, it could be if your value went up over $1,000, those type things, or new ownership will generate a notice. Notice goes out, you have the opportunity to look at them, you have 30 days to reach out to us, just get your protest in, because obviously we can't talk to everybody at once. Once the protest comes in, then we start reaching out and trying to help answer those questions. A common one is a new owner doesn't always apply for ag or timber, whichever it may be.
Okay.
Those are things that, as the appraisal district, we're never going to tell you what to do with your property.
Right.
That's yours. You do what you choose to do with it. But we will help you and say, here's a list. These are things that would allow you to apply for special productivity.
Okay.
So ag could be having bees.
Okay.
Bees are a big thing in our area. Hay production, cattle, those are the most common.
Okay.
There's a lot of things out there that maybe the average person hadn't thought about.
Right.
And if if you don't have enough land for, say, timber or to run livestock, then you might want to look at bees.
Okay, so let's kind of dig into that a little bit, because whenever I found this out here a few months ago when we initially started talking, it was very interesting to me. So this basically allows you exemptions.
It's not an exemption. It's called a special productivity value.
A special productivity value. Okay,
Right.
So if you're basically producing something's being produced from anything from bees to timber.
Right.
And pretty much anything. Now, meth labs probably do not count as.
No, but I bet they're going to figure out a way to tax marijuana before long.
That's exactly right. No, but the thing is, so special productivity. So if a person out there has, how much land do you have to actually step into that world?
There's different things.
Okay.
Bees are very specific because they are actually in the tax code this way. It says 5 to 20 acres.
Okay.
Timber, it depends on where you're at because it's customary to your area.
Okay.
We look at 10 acres. Depends on what type of timber it is, how you're managing it. Some may, you may do something with your in-laws or something. And so you've got 5 acres and they've got 3 acres and together it's got 8 acres of really good timber.
Right.
Then that might qualify.
Okay.
So there's different things that would allow you to qualify that maybe aren't within the specific 10-acre rule.
So you can kind of do a grouping of sorts, like with family members
With
and
family
that type
members,
of thing?
yes.
Interesting. So if a person's out here and they want to know more about that, do they just come in and sit down and talk with you?
Absolutely. Well, I have staff that will handle that. There is a clerk that is designated. When you come in and say, I'd like to talk to somebody about my ag or my timber, we have Miss Yolanda up there, and she's got a packet, and it's kind of got some general guidelines.
Okay.
And you can take that with you in the application. Now, when We get the deeds that come in from the county clerk's office,
Mm-hmm.
and if it looks like that land previously had some kind of productivity, we're going to automatically send them out a form.
Okay. So anybody who's already in that process, okay, so this brings me to an interesting question. So say you have a new, let's look at it from a timber standpoint.
Okay.
So say you have a person out here who has basically been receiving that productivity or that special productivity on their land, and specific to timber.
Okay.
And then they turn around and they sell that property. And then you have a new owner come into the mix, okay, who may or may not be aware that that's the case, okay? How does that process work?
So if the previous owner had a timber productivity, we're going to send them an application to the new owner.
Okay.
So then they would have an opportunity to apply.
To choose that as well. Okay.
Right.
So that's a simple fix then.
It's a simple fix, yes. Now, sometimes it does feel overwhelming because it's a state form.
Right.
It's really not, because it's got to cover more than one thing on the application. So you just have to answer the questions that apply to you.
Okay.
And with timber, we do require a management plan.
Okay.
So
now, when you say a management plan?
A management plan is laying out how you're going to take care of your timber and your intent for the use of your timber.
Okay, so you can't basically just have a bunch of woods on your property and not have a game plan for how you're moving forward. Okay.
Correct. And specifically, you have to have the intent to cut the timber.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you have to cut it this year. It doesn't mean that you're going to cut it in 20 years.
Okay.
You're going to cut it when it's the best time, the right size, the market is up, whatever your intent is.
Whatever the variables are.
But to say, I'm never going to cut my timber, will not let you qualify.
Okay. So, wow. Okay. So all they have to do is come in, get the packet, go through the packet, look it over, and then they can kind of see at least a 30,000 foot view of what's available.
Correct.
Okay, that's very interesting.
And so, which most people, if they're going to buy a large tract of land, they kind of already know
They're
what they
already in
want to
that
do.
game.
But this might help them, because what they're thinking of doing may not really qualify for productivity, and they can still do whatever they want. But if
Okay.
you want that special productivity where you're not paying on market value, then you might want to look and see what's available out there.
Gotcha. So let's shift a little bit over into I know there's been a lot said about, I don't actually know the term for it, but I guess like investment properties or like income producing properties and this type of thing. What are some of the, when you look at the map and you start clicking on the map, and I'm referring to the map that's on the appraisal website, and you start seeing that year after year, it looks like the taxes on some of these investment properties are not going up, and yet the single home situation is changing, right? And so my question would be, how does that actually work from y'all's end of the spectrum?
Well, it's based off your rental income.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily what it would cost you to buy or sell that building.
Okay.
But the income that's produced off of it. So if they've not raised their rents, which
in 10 years,
which what we're hearing is that some might be going up. So you may start to see some changes in that, but until we get that information, we don't know.
So how do you, can I, like say if I go out and I have $1 million and I want to invest in real estate out here, and I go and I buy a little small shopping center. I'm not saying $1 million will cover it around here in this day and time.
You'd be surprised.
But saying I had 4 or 5 units all hooked together that was like a little shopping center, and I rented that out $500 a month, or $1,000 a month to each one of those. Then, so you guys don't look at the value of how much that would actually resell for, or how much it would sell in the market.
We would be looking at the income.
So basically, about $50,000 a year. Just for example.
Now it's a little bit different because it's not, you're not valued at the income that comes in, but that is part of a formula.
Okay.
So we take the income, we figure in vacancy losses,
Okay.
Whether or not you're going to have expenditures. There's
Okay.
different things that are going to play into that.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So if we have a, how does a person go from just being like just a standard home person, like having a single family dwelling, to if I went out and invested money and bought something like that or built something like that, do they have to go through a process to actually declare that as an investment property? Or how does that
well,
work?
they will be to an extent, because if you build, say, the new apartments.
Okay.
So the apartments were built. We don't know what they're renting for at the time that they started construction.
Right.
So we're going to put them on based on cost, which is several million.
Right.
Well, they actually provided us what they're going to be. Of course, some of that's income-based rentals. So they kind of tell us what they're renting them for, and that usually brings the values down considerably.
So then if I go out here and I create, and I'm not trying to come up with some crazy ideas here, but I mean, even if I was wanting to jump into real estate and wanted to buy 10 or 20 houses or something like that, then basically I'd come and sit down with you guys and I would say, okay, all of these houses here are rentals.
Right.
And so this is part of a rental thing that I'm doing. And then it would kind of fall into that same type of process.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. That's actually, I mean, but like you said, a person who's buying a big tract of land, they're not dummies. I'm mainly talking to the people like myself who have aspirations at some point of not being a moron. But, specific to properties and purchases and that type of thing. So now, one of the things whenever I was talking to the tax assessor, Mr. Bobby Biscamp, we had talked about, because some of the accusations that have come up, and a lot of stuff on Facebook, a lot of things in the rumor mill and that type of deal, was really kind of chastising you guys for not, everybody's value or everybody's increases were not happening at the same metrics, if you will. They weren't happening in the same period of time. And then, Mr. Biscamp brought up the 3-year window that you guys have. So tell me how that works for you guys. I mean, how many appraisers do you guys actually have here?
Right at the moment, we only have 3.
You have 3.
And that varies.
Okay.
In a perfect world, we'd have 12,
Right.
as big as our county is. But it's very hard to do. The schooling is very hard. It's very challenging, and dealing with the public can be challenging too. So, yes, our reappraisal plan kind of designates which areas of the county that we're working in.
Okay.
So right now we're in the very northern part of Jasper ISD going into Brookland ISD.
Okay.
Now, even though we're following this reappraisal plan, if there's new improvements, which would be like new construction, or say a removal, or somebody comes in and says, tree fell on my house.
Right.
So those are things that we would still go out and look at. Those are
Right.
still things that we're going to go and take care of. But the 3 years is trying to rotate through the county every 3rd year.
And so you have, somewhere in the neighborhood of 46,000
Yes.
accounts?
Property accounts, yes.
That is insane.
It is.
The math on that is nuts.
And our county is 97 miles long.
Yeah.
That's kind of unusual.
Right. So if you have 3 appraisers, and say you had 5, the numbers on that per day is insanity.
It is. But part of that 46,000 that we were talking about, some of that is industrial and mineral, and we will hire an outside firm to handle those.
To handle some like the mineral stuff, mineral
Yes.
rights and all that type of stuff. Okay. But even at that, I mean,
It's still a lot.
It's still crazy.
It
Those are
is.
crazy numbers.
It is.
And so the state actually gives you 36 months to cover all 46,000. Okay. So with that process, how does that normally work? Because I don't know if I've ever. I don't know if I've ever owned a home and had somebody come out there and look at it. Now I've lived all over, but I don't think I've ever had anybody just not come up and knock on the door and be like, "Hey man, I'm here to appraise your house."
Well, because we don't go inside, so there's no appointments.
Okay.
So they might have been there when you weren't home.
Okay.
And depending on what you have, they could be on and off your property in 5 or 10 minutes, just checking updates to make sure you haven't added anything, checking the condition, things like that.
So if there are, so this is the reason for the protesting then. So as the appraisals come back into the mix, you guys are gathering your information. Now I know when we talked before, you referenced sometimes you guys have to use some formulas to kind of look at, say a blanketed group of properties, say 1 acre, 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes, and then that kind of has a little formula process.
Right, because we do mass appraisal. We're not fee appraisers, we do mass.
Okay, so there's a high probability that during that process, because it's the only way that you can actually manage the groundwork. Or the footwork, really.
Correct.
Because you still only have 3 to 5. How many appraisers when you're the heaviest on appraisers? How many do you have?
Oh, I think we've had as many as 5 at a time.
Many as 5. So 3 to 5 is still irrational. Still irrational.
It's very hard to do.
It's very difficult. So you do have to come up with different ways to be able to mitigate or manage that process.
Right.
So the thing that I heard, which seemed crazy to me, but in hearing it, I was like, okay, well, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but the protest period is that 30-day window is as viable a part of the process.
It's the most important part.
Okay. So is there any reason why they only give you 30 days? Because I'll be honest with you. To me, it just seems like 30 days is just...
Well, they have 30 days to get it in.
Okay.
And then we have however long we need to get it worked.
Okay.
Because there's so many deadlines, you've got to get certain portions done within certain times because everybody has deadlines.
And then once you turn in your information, the tax assessor has to go to work on his end.
Exactly, and that's all. They all have dates that they have to have those things done by.
Okay.
So we come up with a preliminary value in the spring.
Okay.
And that's, it's my best guesstimate, but I have to make sure that I'm not over-guessing for them.
Right.
And then I send that information to the taxing entities, and then they start working on their budgets. The schools specifically have the TEA, Texas Education Template, that they use. And so they take that information, they feed it in, they put in all of their different school information. It looks complicated. I've never really looked at it close, but when they come in with their tablets, I think I'm so glad that's not me having to put all that in.
Sure.
But then they come up with their own budgets.
Right.
Now, what's important to the school districts is that for my values, I have to be 95% of actual market value.
Why?
Well, if I'm not, then the schools will not get all their state funding. And we want the state to give as much money to the schools as possible.
Sure.
So if the market is inflated, then we have to follow along with that.
Okay.
So if, say, and I'm just making up a number, I'm not saying this is their levy, but if the school needs $20 million,
right,
they feed in their template and they find out how many students that they're going to have or guess, and then they tell them how much per student they'll have. So then they say, okay, we're going to get, I'm just making this up, 9 million of that from the state.
Right.
Well, then the rest of that comes down here, and they take our assessed value times whatever rate divided by 100 will get them to the rest of the levy that they need.
Okay.
So if I'm not at 95%, then the state is not going to give them the maximum amount of money. So then they have to figure something else out to where that money comes from.
Okay. So in layman's terms, you basically are required to hit that 95% mark.
Yes.
in order for the schools to get the money that they need to get.
Correct.
Now, is that also the same thing up in Brooklyn,
Yes.
Buna, Kirbyville, all through?
All 8 school districts that we service.
Okay. So if that is kind of that's a push. I mean, that's a I wouldn't say a dilemma, but that is definitely it just sets your bar right off the bat.
And it's very challenging because we have limited data to set those values with.
And so, okay, so in the spring, you guys put together your rough projection, okay, and you send that out to the people?
We send that out to the entities.
To the entities, okay, so whoever is controlling that those properties, right? Okay. And then at that point, that's just to kind of give them a heads up, hey, get ready.
Right.
So,
and that's how they start building their budgets.
Okay.
I never see their budgets, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of there's folks out here who believe that everybody gets in a room somewhere and everybody kind of knows what the left hand and the right hand know exactly what's going on.
No, I've never seen. I've been here almost 29 years, and I've never seen anyone's budget.
Yeah. So, but it basically gives you what the states require. I mean, the state's telling you what they require. Here's what we require. This is simple enough.
Absolutely.
You've got to be 95% of the current market values.
So,
which is crazy.
Right. And the market is crazy high right now.
And we're fixing to go back into legislative session here. And how do we get that changed?
I don't know.
Man, because it almost seems like with these values just constantly skyrocketing. I mean, I'm not throwing any stones at Bonware, Texas, but whenever I'm sitting here looking at, property at, $10,000 an acre in Bonware, Texas, I'm going, what in the hell is happening right now?
Right. Well, the legislators did create the compressed tax rate.
Okay.
They prevent the entities from going up over 2.5%.
Okay.
Those are all things, and my understanding is when the legislators created this, it's the new formula. I think it has SB2 and HB2 and HB3 all involved in it. But it requires the schools to compress their tax rate, but then they make up funding on the backside of it from the state, which is what you want.
Okay.
Now, what I'm being told is that next year in this next legislative session, that they're going to make a big difference, because I think that is the end goal, is that they're trying to completely buy down the M&O of the school districts, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and that'll definitely help.
Absolutely, because the school's tax rate is normally the highest.
Yeah, it's normally the biggest bulk of what you're paying. And I mean, it was good to see what the school did here.
Right.
They tried to mitigate that best they could. The county as well.
Right.
Even with these crazy appraisals. So I mean, at least they're working. Now, some people don't know that you go to Austin pretty regularly.
I'll say regularly, but I do go to Austin.
Okay. So what is your process when you go to Austin?
Well, it's when I'm going, it's usually for training.
Okay. State training and that type of thing.
Right.
Just to kind of keep you up to speed as to what's going on.
Now, in the past, and I'm guessing this is what you were leading to, I correspond with James White. Now, I've not met Mr. Phelan yet, so and I've been too busy to come up with a list of what I would like for him to be pushing for. But James White was very supportive. During COVID, I did a request trying to keep our values where we wouldn't have to raise them, but the tax code just didn't allow for that. But he did take the letter, he did present it, he did go and talk to other people about it. And I know I wasn't the only chief appraiser, because that's the part I don't think some people understand is they don't see that we're here rallying to the legislators just like taxpayers are.
Right.
Just like with the homestead. For the last 3 years, we begged our Texas Association of Appraisal Districts, lobbied to get help for the homeowners. And their solution to that was the $40,000 homestead.
Okay.
which it ended up on the ballot, which got passed. So that was a big help.
It's positive.
It's very positive. But that is something that we were pushing for as far as our association.
I got you. Now, there have been I won't say a lot, but consistent accusations against you, the board, your faculty here, your staff here.
Right.
Personal attacks and these types of things as well. Is that unusual?
It's usually the same people every year.
Okay.
I would say that my staff is usually pretty friendly.
Okay.
They do their best. They are cordial, and if you come in and you talk to them, they're going to sit there and spend as much time as you need. If you come in and you're angry and fussing at them, well, they're going to come get me, and then
Right.
we try to work with you from there.
Right.
But if you come in and you want to be helped, we can help you.
Yeah. So if there's, to dispel, I won't say dispel rumor, but are there is there anything that you would like to make abundantly clear to maybe the people who don't know you, but hear all the rhetoric and the rumor mill out here challenging? Because honestly, it's almost like, you've been referred to as Ebenezer Scrooge. You've been referred to as being a meanie. You've been referred to as, potentially corrupt, and your staff is corrupt, and what's nuts is you guys are dealing with the same thing everybody else in the state's dealing with right now.
That's right.
And it's not like it's not like Jasper County is just sitting out here alone with the appraisal district here, and you're the only ones who have these accusations against you, But is there anything that you want to make clear? Specific to rumor?
Well, we're not corrupt.
Okay.
My husband might tell you I'm a little bit mean sometimes. But if you know me, you know I'm not.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I think there was a lot of things. There's a lot of things being thrown around, and obviously, when it comes to property taxes and things like that, people get very emboldened and impassioned, or passionate rather, about their position. And your overall objective is what would you say the overall objective is here for the appraisal district?
well,
Obviously, the state already set some of your standards.
that is absolutely right. And, there's a lot of talk about the ARB members and the board of directors.
Right.
And what people that don't know them, the people who know them know, but the ones who don't know them, they don't realize that they're as anti-taxing as anyone.
Right.
But this is the system that we have. This is the law that we have to follow.
Right.
And so those are the perfect people to make sure that it's being done correctly.
Sure.
So
Now, are the board meetings open to the public?
they are.
Okay.
They're very boring though.
Okay. So you guys have, what do you have, once a month, something like that?
Sometimes once a month. Like we didn't have one this month. We
Okay.
didn't have anything pressing. So
Okay.
we have to meet at least quarterly.
Okay. So tell me how the board works and how the ARB works.
Okay. Board of directors?
Yes, the board of directors work.
Okay, the board of directors oversee the appraisal district. They have absolutely nothing to do with the appraisals, the exemptions.
Okay.
All of those things are mandated by the law, and it's actually illegal for them to intervene or try to intervene in that. So
Okay.
these people are very honest and upfront. They would never, if you go to them in the public and you say, I'm not happy with my value, they're going to say, well, you need to go talk to them at the appraisal district. Go down
Okay.
there and talk to them. And they usually tell them to ask for me,
Right.
and that's fine. Now, there have been times when, say, an elderly person needs to take care of something, I might get a call and say, they can't get up there to bring you their driver's license.
Right.
So what do? We go down, we meet with that person and help them get that straight.
Okay.
Your board of directors are the ones who approve the budgets, and they actually have very little to do with the running of the office.
So really, in a way, for people out here listening, it's more like Commissioner's Court, as opposed Commissioner's Court and their handlings and dealings with the entire county.
Correct.
As opposed to maybe one specific commissioner and what they're doing.
Right.
Because that one commissioner is obviously outlining what he's doing with his group. And so in a way, I mean, it may be a moronic way to
right. Well,
to
the board of
out.
directors, they can't even discuss their own personal values if it's not in an open meeting.
Okay.
And they kind of feel like that's a violation of their privacy when
Right.
Joe Blow can come in and talk to us privately, but they understand.
Okay, so to dispel one specific rumor that I've heard, if you want to get special treatment, then become a board member, and you can get special. I don't know if you guys actually have it down as a board member exemption on people's property taxes and this type of deal, but at least that's been a rumor.
Yeah, no, they actually get treated harder because they have to do it in public. They
Right.
have to say, they have to come out and talk about it in front of everybody.
Right.
They don't get to sit down by themselves. But that special exemption that the rumor was, or so it come back around to me also. If you look at our board, with the exception of one member, they're all of a protected class of ages.
Okay.
And that same class, the legislators have protected them on public websites.
Okay.
So
So break that down for me a little bit. So if I'm 45 years old, I'm not what you'd call a protected class.
correct.
Okay. So maybe if I'm over 60, 65, somewhere in there, there's a level there
Right.
that I've got to get to before my property's protected from
Right.
increases.
But you get that exemption whether you're on the board of directors or not.
Okay.
It just happens
So
to be.
that's for everybody.
That's for everybody.
Okay. So this is not a special.
No,
Okay.
it's just a coincidence that all but one of them are.
Okay.
So I guess you could say he's being mistreated because he didn't get that exemption.
All right. So that's very interesting. Okay, I'm trying to go through the Rolodex of rumor here.
Right.
I know that you were personally pointed out as being, having some discrepancies with some of your properties, even
Yes.
to say that basically, hey, our chief appraiser here is corrupt because this is how her properties are broken down. You want to bring any clarity to any of that? Because and honest to God, I don't even know if we need to bring any clarity to it, because if there was, I think, let me just quote James White. James White made the statement. He said, if there's people out here in the county who believe there's actual corruption and criminal activity going on at the appraisal district, then they need to go and sit down with Sheriff Mitchell Newman and talk to Sheriff Mitchell Newman.
Absolutely.
So I don't even know if we need to even give any credence to any of that stuff.
But I would like to say thank you to the people who took the 30 seconds to get on Google and and enter in my husband's name and that Kirbyville address and see that man in Kirbyville who has the same name as my husband is in that protected class that we don't talk about, and that his wife's name is something else, and that's all public record.
Okay.
So I do appreciate those people that said, I've got to see this to believe it. And then obviously it wasn't true.
Well, there you go. Because, it is rare that you have two people living in the same county with the same name.
Right. And we're not related.
And you're not related.
And not related. Or not that we're aware of.
Right. Well,
but just so they know, I've got a nephew named John Barnett, and there is another John Barnett here in Kirbyville, or in Magnolia Springs.
in Magnolia Springs.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So talk to me a little bit about homesteading, how that works for people. So say I'm a new, and I know we're kind of jumping around here, but really, to be honest with you, it's trying to cover a lot of ground at once. But The process of homesteading. So say I go out here and I'm a first-time homeowner or a home buyer, right? I go out here and I purchase a piece of property. What does that mean, homesteading?
Homesteading, you can claim up to 20 acres for your homestead if that's what you choose.
Okay.
So if you
go buy 100 acres, then you can claim 20 of it.
You can claim 20 of it, but if you've bought 100 acres of it, you probably, what's best for you is to only apply for whatever you're actually using for your home, because if you've got that much land, you're probably running cattle or timber, so you want to put that under productivity, because it will cost you less that way. Okay. Tax-wise. It's very simple, but you do have to have the 911 situs address of the property has to be on your driver's license. Okay. So you want to get that fixed before you come in to see us. Now you can have a separate mailing address other than your 911, and you can have both of them on your driver's license, and that's not a problem. Then there's a form that you fill out. It's pretty simple, just some check boxes.
And that's pretty standard.
It's very standard, yes, across the state.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about what you guys did specific with, is it TAD?
Texas Association of Appraisal Districts.
Yes, and the CAP.
The CAP, okay. Well, now the CAP was done several years ago. Okay. Back in the 2000s. Okay. When you get your homestead, the year after that, if your value goes up, doesn't matter what it goes up to, your assessed taxable part is only 10% more than the previous year. Okay. So, if for some reason, like right now, for instance, the market is high because it's high, so our values go up. If the market goes down next year, most people or homeowners, they're not even going to ever actually feel those effects of that. Okay. Because they're still being taxed down here on that 10% cap. Okay. Plus the new homestead. So even though, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but the majority of the homestead people this year will actually pay less because of that $40,000 homestead, and because they're still under that 10% homestead cap. Interesting. Okay, so that's a good thing. That's a positive thing, at least. And that's the appraisal districts working with the legislators for what's best for the public. Okay. Okay. You guys are in constant. It's like a constant circus, if you will, of trying to at least communicate some of that stuff to legislators. Right. Yeah. So with the change from James, I know James was very Representative James White, who is no longer representative. I guess it's Dade Phelan at this point. Then that's going to have to be top priority at some point. Right. For everybody to kind of get dialed in on Mr. Phelan. It almost seems like you looked up, you could show up to a football game, or you could show up to a funeral and James White would be there. I don't know how he pulled that off. James always, is like, hey, don't look at his Facebook deal, because you're going to see him in about 10 different places in the same day. So he had that omnipresence, if you will. Right. But so. Is there anything specific that I can't relay this enough, how much the protest season is so a part of y'all's process? I know we've talked about that, but I can't. Computing for me is like, okay, all right, this is not a done deal. You guys send out what you send out, and then you're giving the public the opportunity to come and communicate and have this conversation. So it's almost like a beginning of a dialogue, if you will, about moving forward. Right. Okay. During that time, whenever, and it takes a while to get to everyone, because we want to try and give everybody our undivided attention, and that's very hard to do. Sure. Because as soon as I hang up the phone with you, I get interrupted by something else, and then it takes me sometimes a while to get back to whoever I just talked to. But that's the opportunity, because mass is not perfect for every single property. Right. We need to know that, you've got a gully running through your property, and the tornado hit a certain area. Well, if you don't come in and let us know, we don't know we need to get out there. Yeah. Pictures values can change. Important. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, just because you, and sometimes, I mean, even, I don't know if this is a method, but sometimes it's even, pulling up what you see on Google Earth may not even be as accurate as it is, whenever you sit down and talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because you may remove a building, add a building, whatever the case is.
Right.
So the 30 days, when does that start and when does that finish?
Well,
because I know it was earlier in the year. So
right, you try to get them out in April.
Okay.
We're usually in May or June.
Okay.
But it's whenever they go out, you've got 30 days
You've
to
got 30
protest.
days at that point.
To just get it in. That's all you have to do is get it in.
Okay.
It's so simplified now. It's just check boxes. You just go through. It's incorrect value. Let me check that. Oh, got an ag problem. Let me check that.
Yeah.
And then you sign it, send it back. We have a drop box outside, so you can, 24 hours a day, you can drop it in there. You can email them in. We have an email set up for that. Homeowners can file online. There's a portal for that, and the information's on your notice when it comes out.
So there's no reason. It's not like they have to drop it off on the second Thursday between 2 and 2:30. It's not a situation like that.
No, most of them come in the last couple days of the 30 days, though.
Okay.
That's not unusual.
Well, so kind of to wrap up our conversation here, is there anything specific? I know you had a couple things that you wanted to point out.
Yes.
What do you, obviously in the barrage of the passionate arguments and things, there have been some things that's been some people who have been addressed or spoken to or maybe kind of thrown out there with the whole corruption thing and all that stuff. What do you have there?
Mr. Gravis is chairman of our board.
Okay.
And recently something was commented that he was serving illegally.
Okay.
His dual offices.
Okay.
There was a website, tml.org, that has a checklist of yes and no type answers.
Okay.
So if you go to that website and you actually go into the website, you'll come to this page that shows you, it's a little website.
Okay.
Well, the second page tells you that the charts attached at the end of this article is just an overview of Attorney General opinions in cases that have ruled on specific questions of whether two offices may be held simultaneously. So you go through the charts and you find these yes-no answers.
So this I actually have seen. Let's see here. Let me make sure everybody sees this the best we can. Got all that right there. May need to pause it. But the one that is marked there at the bottom, I'm going to try to get that in there for you. The JM 1157, that's one we're referring to.
Correct. Okay. So if you go online to do this, you can actually click on this little box.
Okay.
And it opens up and it tells you the specific question that this answer is to. And the question is whether the Board of Trustees of an independent school district may contract for tax collection with the county when the county collector is also a member of the Board of Directors of the Appraisal District. So the accusation was made towards Mr. Gravis, but this only pertains to the tax assessor.
Okay.
So Mr. Gravis is not the tax assessor.
Okay.
But just to clear up anything in the future, Mr. Biscamp is not a voting member of my board, so it doesn't affect him either.
Okay.
So, just wanted to make that clear that Mr.
So
Gravis
you can
is.
actually click on that and see exactly what it's referring to.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Gravis falls under the tax code 6.03, section 6.24b, and it says an individual who is otherwise eligible to serve on the years immediately preceding an individual who is otherwise eligible to serve on the board is not ineligible because of membership on the governing body of a taxing unit. So he is clear to go.
Clear to go.
And when those laws come into effect, we obviously got opinions from our attorneys even before this year. So we wanted to make sure everybody's
legal.
That's right, because it was a new law.
Sure.
So
everybody's legal. There's no special exemptions. There's not like, There's not like a asterisk or a hashtag that we can put on anybody's name that's going to give them any exemptions if they're on the board.
Correct.
So the board is different than the ARB, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How does that work?
Okay. The Appraisal Review Board, we call them the ARB. They are appointed across the county.
Okay.
And they are here to hear what the taxpayers have to say. So if you come in and you're protesting and you talk to an appraiser and you say, okay, I agree with you, you sign off. We do that during the informal. You never have to go any further. But if you say, no, I don't agree with that, you go on before the Appraisal Review Board. And they are separate from us. They have their own training. They have to go and take training each year. They actually have changed it to where they go on and do like a Zoom type training now.
Right.
They don't, since COVID, they don't go to Region 5 anymore.
Right.
So you come in, you go before them in this very room right here, and you state their case to the board. So if you've got a good, legitimate, they're going to do everything they can to help you. If you come in and you just want to lecture them against the taxing system, there's not anything they can do about that.
They just have to play inside the rules.
That's correct.
That's outlined by the state.
They have nothing to do with what your taxes are,
Right.
what your exemptions are. All they can do is help you with your value,
Okay.
your market value.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if they don't feel like, if the people don't feel like they get resolved
mm-hmm.
with your staff or with you, mm-hmm. then they can obviously appeal to the ARB.
Correct.
Okay. And then at that point, it's really, I guess, beyond ARB, I guess, where would that go?
Once the ARB makes a decision, then if the taxpayer is still not happy, they can file an arbitration or they can file a lawsuit.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Having said all that, mm-hmm. is there something you would like to put out to the public, just in your own words, for, say, the people who are not fans of the appraisal district?
I would encourage anyone, whether they're a fan or not, to let the process work for them.
Okay.
Come in, talk to us.
And that protest is part of the process?
That's part of the process.
Okay.
It is part of the process.
Okay. All right. Well, Ms. Barnett, I really appreciate you taking time with us today.
Well, thank you for having us.
I know we're both going to get chewed up and spit out of this interview, but at the same time, you know, there were some people who told me that you would never sit down and have an interview.
No, I told you I would.
You did, and you stuck to your guns. And but I was warned that would not be. You might as well go somewhere else. That Ms. Barnett will not have a sit-down conversation. Now, I appreciate the fact that you took time out of your schedule and did this. And you know, maybe in the future, a little bit more information out to the public, you know, helps. You know, I mean, because I'll be honest with you. Just knowing that the protest part is part of this process. I mean, matter of fact, you know, what's crazy is I live over in Newton County, mm-hmm. and I go through and our protest form comes in, or whatever the little form was, mm-hmm. and I told my wife, she's like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely, just protest it and see what happens." Mm-hmm. You know, and then I get over on Google and I start looking at market values. I'm like, hold on to that. We don't want them looking at it too heavy, you know what I mean? So, but at the same time, you know, I really appreciate you taking time and trying to answer, you know, kind of a barrage of thoughts and rumor and speculation and a whole bunch of other stuff. But I think it's valuable information that people need to know specific to the school funding side of it, because I mean that really kind of steers. That almost sets the course,
right?
You know, right off the bat.
Right.
So it's a big thing.
And it's very important. And you know what's so important about getting as much state funding as you can is because those entities, those school districts, are going to need whatever amount of levy. It doesn't matter what my value is.
Right.
If the values go way up, they still only need this much levy. If the values go down, they still just need this much levy.
Right.
So.
Ms. Barnett, we appreciate you taking time with us. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Not on the Payroll. Check us out each and every Thursday night, 7 o'clock, KJS 107.3 FM.